Okay, I'm going to ask you about your colleague Adam Schefter.
Yeah.
He reported that maybe Jaden Daniels wasn't so keen on going to the Washington Commanders. Obviously, that would affect greatly what happens with the number 3 pick that the Patriots currently hold. What are you hearing? What is going on? What are the whispers around ESPN? What's the newest intel?
I like it. So, Fred, this all started, I believe, with Jaden Daniels' agent with an emoji tweet based on Washington brought in the top quarterbacks at the same time for visits. So Jaden Daniels was there, Drake May was there, JJ McCarthy was there. And I think the agent did this sort of like emoji tweet as if to say, like, well, that's sort of strange. And so I think that's what's led this conversation to start, that maybe Jaden wouldn't want to play there. But I think as you drill down deeper into it, and credit to Adam Schefter, who actually has a new piece out today, Fred, that mentions this, I think it was more a reflection of Jaden Daniels maybe wanting more face time with commanders, coaches, personnel people than having to share it with the other top quarterbacks in the class during that visit.
Yeah, it was odd, wasn't it, that they brought in all the quarterbacks at the same time. I know that the Bears, who are taking Caleb Williams, brought in like Caleb Williams' teammates with him, and
Yep.
and that seemed like a good idea because you got to see how he interacted with his teammates and stuff like that. But bringing them all at the same time did seem odd. What are you hearing in terms of as this situation goes on, as time goes on? Their quarterbacks falling. Did you hear any inclinations from the Patriots on who they would be interested in now that it seems like there's 4 quarterbacks that could be conceivably taken in a row? What are you hearing?
So that's the biggest mystery, Fred, is how they've got these quarterbacks rated. I would say that very few people outside of those within the walls there know the ranking. They've kept it closely guarded. So I don't know how they have them rated, but I do know that they are very motivated and, as you would expect, to come out of this draft with a quarterback. They're operating, as I understand it, with the mindset that you can't win without a quarterback, and they're obviously happy they have Jacoby Brissett, who they think can, start for them initially and keep them competitive and help mentor a young quarterback. But to come out of this draft without a quarterback, I think that'd be a tough. I don't think that's the way they're looking at it right now, is what I would say.
That's interesting because there's been a lot of talk nationally about the Raiders being very motivated to move up. They don't pick until later in the first round. What do they have, John? Like the 11th pick or something? I think they might have the 11th pick in the draft. And that might be the Vikings. 13.
Vikings have 11.
Vikings have 11. The Vegas has 13. That's a long way to drop. So it would surprise you. Would it surprise you if they did make a deal with Vegas to drop all the way down to 13 in this draft, regardless kind of the haul they got?
So, well, no, I would say it would have to be what does the haul include? Like, if all of a sudden you're telling me, Fred, that Devontae Adams is part of a trade that includes multiple first-round picks, to me, as we go through hypothetical scenarios that could motivate the Patriots to move down, it would have to be something that, in my view, and from what I hear from them, is greater than the value of what you'd normally expect a trade to be. And I don't want to sit here and be used by anyone, which I don't think that's what it is. I think that's the way they honestly view it. Look, we'll listen if you want to, help us with our need at wide receiver and left tackle and give us a lot of number ones. Well, maybe then we would consider putting off the quarterback, position, but it has to be that much greater. You know what I mean? Not the traditional trade of a couple first round picks and maybe a future second. I just don't think that's going to get it done to go down that far.
Yeah, because you're going down far in this draft, and also those first-round picks conceivably aren't going to be very high in the future because the Raiders aren't going to be a bad team. So, in your opinion, is the value of a third pick in a good quarterback draft more valuable, that single pick, than like 3 middle to late round firsts where you're getting, like, I don't know, a starting safety or, like what I'm saying, like it seems like it seems like when you say, oh, well, you got 3 first-round picks for your first round pick and then a second round pick, and it sounds like a lot and like, whoa, but I mean, would you rather have your starting quarterback or a safety, a guard, and a defensive tackle? Plenty of teams have a safety, a guard, and a defensive tackle that suck.
That's right.
So that's the thing. Go ahead, John.
And
go ahead, Mike. I'm sorry.
Yeah, Fred, I was just going to add this. I was talking with Mark Dominic, a former general manager of the Buccaneers, and he put it this way, simply. He goes, you could offer the Chiefs 8 first-round picks for Patrick Mahomes, and they're not going to take it. And I think that's the viewpoint of, you're probably not going to draft the next Patrick Mahomes, but, if you're drafting a quarterback that you're convicted in at 3, you think you got a chance to have the guy to build around for the next decade. The idea being that the team knows that whoever they pick, that's sort of who their legacy is tied to. And so to me, that's a good analogy to make.
Mike, now that we're about 72 hours out from the draft, we've heard a lot about J.J. McCarthy over the last month, and Fred correctly said that he was going to zip up draft boards and be a guy in consideration here in the top 10. I know you said you're not aware of how the Patriots have ranked these quarterbacks, but can you say definitively that McCarthy is a consideration at 3 for this team?
Well, I can say he's a consideration. I don't know if I could say he's a consideration at 3, John. I don't know if they have him rated that highly. But when you look at just follow like their trail, Gerard Mayo, Elliott Wolf travel out to Michigan for his pro day in, late March. Then they bring him into the facility. Like, they've invested a lot of time in him. And I don't, that's not a smokescreen. So I do think he's a consideration. The question to me would be, is he a consideration at 3, or is he a consideration in a scenario? And I think this is tough to do, but Adam Schefter writes about it a little bit this morning, where do you trade back up, but then come back up, to get McCarthy, whether it's at 4, 5, 6, and try to add some assets. But to me, like that's tough to pull off.
Okay, so Mike, you mentioned it earlier about not wanting to be used by anybody. Belichick mentioned it with McAfee last week, how agents and everything are out there at this time of year trying to create smoke screens. As we get closer to the draft, do you think the rhetoric and the stories, whether it's the Jaden Daniels report about and not wanting to play in Washington or anything else we hear, as we get closer to the draft, do you think there is a greater chance that the stories and the reports and rumors are smoke screens, or do these things become more real as we get closer to Thursday night?
Well, I think it probably depends on which ones. Like Hardy, I would say like Jaden Daniels. Like I don't think he's gonna not. I don't think he's gonna say I'm only playing for one team. Like I think ultimately that'll be like whoever drafts him, like that's where he's gonna go. And so the question to me is more, how does Washington view him, right? Like. So I would say more like I look at the Patriots as an example, like Elliott Wolf says, we're open for business for trading. Do I think that's the likely scenario, Hardy? Like, I don't like, I think it's more like, you're either a motivated seller or you're sort of a curious seller. And I would put them more in the curious seller. Like, oh, if someone's going to knock us over, yeah, well, listen, but we're not looking to move out of here. That's how I sort of view their position right now.
One quick question, non-draft related, and you mentioned it in your notes column yesterday. What is Matthew Slater's real job? What I know what his job title is, but what is he actually going to be doing?
So John, I think like right-hand man to Gerard Mayo. Hey, whatever he needs, help being around the facility, helping young players. Words that were used to me was like, helping develop people. Culture setter. So I think just having him around is sort of the job. And I would imagine just because Matthew put so much into his playing career that he's not going to be like a coach that's burning the midnight oil, John. You know what I mean? Like working late. Yeah. Like he's got a wife and young kids and needs to be around them. So I think they'll structure it, where it's a good balance for him to make an impact, in terms of being around in the culture, but also, being able to balance it off and not work those really long coaching hours.
All right. So what are your plans, Mike, for the draft? Are you headed out to Detroit? Are you going to stay around the team, or what's going on?
So, Fred, I will be in Foxborough. I never actually go to wherever the draft is.
No one does. Yeah, it seems pointless.
Well, we'll have like ESPN, Fred, will have like a huge, and I bet a lot of the local TV stations will be there too, because there is an element of capturing that excitement. But just from like my position within ESPN, they just want you like on the ground where the coach and the personnel people are, so you can sort of relay the latest information from like what'd you call it? Like the draft room, or right near the draft room.
So is this the first year? Which, by the way, it's much more. My point was, it's much more valuable for you to be not at the draft. It's much more valuable to be here. Is this the first time that they're like, all right, Mike, because of the success of the Patriots in the past, that they're like, all right, Mike, like we're going to be going to you like a lot, like you're going to be on TV a lot Thursday night.
So I think more leading up to it, Fred. So like they'll have like their set during the draft, and once the draft starts, I would be surprised if they actually come to the page like, hey, let's go on the scene to New England. But I think leading up to when the draft actually starts, that'll be more like, hey, let's hear what they're saying in Chicago and Washington, New England, and a couple of the other picks. But it's actually less because of their success and more because they're in the number 3 spot, and there's such intrigue. Right?
Yeah, I'm saying that in the past it was because of their success. Yeah,
that's my fault. I didn't understand.
No, that's fine. But I'll tell you this, Mike, is they're going to go to you a lot on Friday, and I'll tell you why. It's because as the things slow down, they're going to want to continue to talk to you about what's going on with what happened with the third pick, and so you're going to be a busy man this weekend, which I'm sure you're excited about. So
look forward to.
Yeah. So have a great time. Mike Reiss, read him on ESPN.com. He'll be all over the coverage this week and into the draft Thursday and Friday and over the weekend. Mike, it's always a pleasure. Thank you so much, sir.
I appreciate you guys.